but we can start talking, and as soon as it comes back up, we'll pull up the slideshow. If not, we'll just wing it, right? So I was thinking about what would maybe be helpful to talk about today, and I heard a podcast last week that was so fantastic, and it really hit home with me. And I thought, I mean, everyone could benefit from it. So it was an Ed Milet podcast. But what I wanted to start out with is asking everyone, what are some of the skills that you feel like a good and successful health coach has? And just come off mute.
I feel like one of the best is they've learned how to learn.
Yes, for sure. That was a big one. Because I came into it thinking that I had to know everything, and that I wasn't going to be a good coach if I didn't have all of the answers right away. And now I've found that if I know how to find the answers, that's all that really matters. What else? What are some other? They ask good questions. They know how to listen. Okay, what else? I'm just reading from the chat. What else do you think?
I think maybe they're constantly learning themselves, and so it's easier for them to be able, or us, I don't know, to be able to help our clients. Definitely.
What about natural abilities? Do you think that there are just natural abilities that people have that make them better coaches than others?
Yes and no. Everybody has natural abilities, but really successful people, I listen to a lot of Ed Milet, so
you probably know which one I'm talking about.
Well, I know the content that he's been giving to the world for the last 5 years, and I'm very much an Ed Milet disciple, because one of the things that he talks about and that I've learned is that really successful people, and I've had a lot of conversations around this, they probably have more insecurity than unsuccessful people. But they don't, they also have a greater desire to, well, Dr. Anderson talks about this with, associated with identity, right? It doesn't matter what you think of yourself. It doesn't matter how insecure you are. It matters how passionate you are about creating the life that you want. And so you go and do it anyway, right? One of the things that I had a talk with a coach yesterday, and I asked this very question, like, what are the skills that you want to learn? And she said, work ethic. And Ed Milet, it's like, work ethic is not a skill. It's a decision. It's not something that you develop. Like, it's just like, hey, I made a decision that I'm going to work my guts out to get what I want. So I don't know. I think that skills are overrated sometimes.
Yeah, I love that answer, because I think a lot of times we look at the people walking across the stage at convention and we think, oh, they're just natural born leaders, or they're natural born conversationalists. They have the skills of asking great questions, and we get caught up thinking that that's something that we don't have or maybe can't have. And so we'll never be up on that stage. But what I really liked that Ed Milet said is that people have natural giftedness, but everything else is a skill that you can develop. And the number one skill is availability. It's the desire to be available, to work your buns off, and to not quit. And if you don't quit, it doesn't matter if you're gifted with a particular skill, because you will build that skill by not quitting. You will eventually outlast all of the other people who have a gift but don't have the resilience to stay in the game. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, is developing the skill of not quitting. So Tara's going to talk a little bit about this analogy that he shared that I thought was fantastic.
Okay, so there's one that he talks specifically about, I think it was last week's podcast, and he totally uses life as a piñata. And he talks about the one main difference between people that are successful and non-successful is that the winners stay in the game long enough to collect life's candy. So then he goes into this piñata analogy of how, you know, you go to a 5-year-old birthday party and they have a piñata hanging and they blindfold a kid and spin them around so they're totally disoriented, and then they give them a bat. And they're like, go hit stuff. Hit it until you break it open. And so they're just like swinging wild, going crazy. And sometimes the piñata's over here and they're swinging the bat way over here. And they're just feeling lost and confused and disoriented. And sometimes those kids rip the blindfold off and they're like, I didn't do anything. And they give up. Or they have someone who kind of leads them back over to the piñata and is like, hey, go left a little bit. Okay, there you are, swing hard. And they're right at it. And they're just swinging away. And they hit it 4 or 5 times and nothing happens. And so they're just like, okay. And so those are the kids that don't get the candy, right? Those are the kids that walk away and they don't have the reward at the end because they gave up too soon. And he says, like, it's kind of scary sometimes when those kids get let loose, right? Oh, sorry, I've got a sad 3-year-old in the background. That's life. But when those kids get let loose with the bat and they're swinging wild, sometimes you're standing there as a parent and you pull your kid back to safety because you don't want them to get hit, right? Until they get led on that right direction. And he's talking about how sometimes with anything we start new in life, if it's a new business, a new exercise program, a new venture, anything that we're doing, sometimes we just swing wild and we're not, sorry, sis, hold on, wait just a second. Sometimes we're just swinging wild and we kind of maybe hurt people around us. The bat goes crazy and, you know, we don't really get the reward that we want, but it's sticking in the game and really sticking to it. It's when we start a new business, anything like that, any new relationship, sometimes people around us just take a step back and they watch. They want to see what we're doing before they fully engage themselves. And so he talks about how we've been given this gift, whatever it is that we want to share as coaches. For us, we want to share our gift of health with everybody, right? And you get started in your business, you've lost some weight, you've got awesome before and after pictures, and you jump in there and you start swinging the bat. And you're going crazy. And maybe you're swinging way off in the right field and the piñata's over here on the left. What are some things that we could really turn to and look to help guide us back to that piñata? Come off mute and just give me a few ideas of ways that we can direct ourselves back to that piñata.
You know what? I'll say, Tara, I know for me, over the years of coaching, the thing that helps me most is staying plugged into my mentorship. Like when I feel like I'm swinging and nothing's happening, I'm not going anywhere. That usually is because I'm either that I'm not on the training calls, that I'm not communicating, and I'm not trying to better myself. And so I think staying plugged in with your mentor, your business coach, and just that wanting to learn, what Jared talked about in the very beginning, that's so key, and staying plugged into the community.
That's me, fine.
Awesome, thank you. I love that. Like, we need that mentorship. We need those people to kind of guide us back. Ed Milet says, it's okay to feel disoriented and lost. So many other things It's okay to feel disoriented and lost with so many other things when you're working towards your dreams. But the most critical piece of success is holding your ground and being available and being resilient. So just continuing to hit that piñata time after time after time. Learning how to turn towards your mentor to say, okay, can you point me in the right direction? Those are the times when we need to be able to just continue to keep going. So being resilient, because eventually that piñata is going to open, right? Someone's going to get success. So there's a few steps on resiliency we're going to go over and teach you right now.
Okay, and this is where it would be awesome if my slideshow would come up. Okay, we're really winging it here. So one of the things that I really like that he points out in resiliency is that, we're, sticking with the piñata analogy, a lot of times we're hitting that piñata, right? We're doing all of the steps where, the bat is making a connection with that piñata, but it takes a while. Like you don't see the dents happening in that piñata, or it feels like, boy, your arms are so tired and you can't see the candy. It's inside the piñata. You're not seeing a lot of progress. And so sometimes we just want to give up, or we hand the baton over and we ask someone else to take it for us and they give up, and then we want to give up, and that could be that we have coaches under us and maybe they're not working. They get distracted and they're not working. And so we feel like, oh, I'm not being a very good mentor coach. Maybe I'm just not good at this. I'm just going to give up. Or we get distracted with other things. And I would love to hear some of the ideas and things that you guys have done that have helped you get past distraction, whether that be, frustration when your first 3 clients quit on their first day, or somebody sends their box back before they even open it, or maybe it's you feel like nobody's getting on a health assessment or nobody's commenting on your Facebook posts. What are some of the things that you have found have been helpful to get past those distractions?
Hey, Lori, I think that this goes back to the learning. I think that it's important that we're always listening to things to pull those things out that are relatable to us. Like the piñata analogy, incredible. Ed Milet did an interview with Donovan Darius, who has played a decade in the NFL and retired 6 years ago. And but he did this interview with him about 4 or 5 years ago. And Donovan Darius, this is something that I always think about. He says, as a defensive player, the offense and defense, they practice together, but they also practice separately, and they watch film separately because they're on opposite sides of the ball, right? So as the average NFL team has 65 plays per game, just on average. So as a defender, his defensive team, they said, hey, you're going to have on average 65 plays a game that you have to defend. In all 10 years, his coaches, and this happened in college also when he was at Syracuse, they all said the same thing. The difference in the game comes down to 3 or 4 plays. 3 or 4 plays out of 65. And he said, but you have to be present for all 65 because you don't know which 3 or 4 plays they're going to be. So oftentimes, like when I get distracted or I get down because someone quits or heaven forbid, I have a client that calls me up and says, hey, you know what? My neighbor who's been my friend forever, she just became an Optavia coach, or he just became an Optavia coach, and I really want to support them. Well, guess what my brain does immediately? Are you kidding me? I've been a coach for 10 and a half years. I'm a way better coach than this brand new whoever that's never helped one person. That's where my brain goes first because I'm a human being. But quickly, I catch myself and I say, no, you know what? This is what's best for this individual at this time. She wants to support this new coach because they're good friends. This is going to provide more support for both of them. And I look at that as, hey, this may be one of these 3 or 4 critical plays during the game for me to see how I'll respond to it. But it might be also one of the 3 or 4 critical plays in her game, how successful she'll be long term. Right? So no play is insignificant. However big or small, every opportunity just gives us another opportunity to prove to the universe how we'll respond to it, and whether that will be a game changer.
That's so true. And with that piñata analogy, you don't know which hit is going to crack open that piñata, right? You just don't know. And so often, you watch those kids get frustrated and walk away, and it's the very next hit that just cracks that open. But they've walked away far enough that, when that piñata breaks open, it's every man for himself. They're diving in on top of each other to get that candy. And if you've walked too far, you're out. And the thing that I really liked that he mentioned about this is that, okay, sure, maybe you have swung that bat and maybe some people got hurt on the sidelines as you were swinging, or maybe they stepped back because you were doing this weird thing and they didn't want to be involved or whatever. But when that breaks open, everybody benefits. So if you have brought a team in and you've gathered people to help you, and when you get tired, they're there to hold your arms up, or you have mentorship around you that are saying a little to the left, a little to the right, step forward, step back. When that breaks open, everybody benefits. Everybody's blessed by it. And if we've walked away too far, then all of that hard work, all of the tired arms, the frustration, all of that will have no reward at the end because you walked away. But that piñata is going to bust open. And who's it going to bust open for? Are you going to be there to watch it and to get the candy out, or will you have walked away too soon and only had the pain of it? So there's the biggest thing is just don't quit. Every day do something. On your very worst days, do one thing. And when you have better days, do a million things. But I talked yesterday a little bit about Michelle Dixon, who is a coach on my team. And she just said that it's one conversation a day, one day at a time, one thing at a time. And that's how she built up to executive director in a month. She did it by just one thing at a time, just doing what she could on the days that she could while she was working a 50 to 60 hour job. And so it's not these huge, grandiose things all the time. It's the day-to-day consistency, getting back up when you fall down, when you're blindfolded, asking your mentorship for help, having them guide you, being willing to be coached and be taught, and just being persistent. And that is really what wins the game. Those people who are walking the stage at convention, they may not be the best communicators. You may be a better communicator than them. You may be better at, asking good questions, or you might be better at Facebook posts, but they just didn't quit. That's all it is they just didn't quit. And so if we can develop those skills, we can be at that place if we just hang in there long enough. I wish I had this how much time do we have? I don't have a clock here.
About 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes? Okay. I would love to hear some comments from everyone else. And Tara, if you had something else that you were going to mention too, without the slides, I'm not sure what we've missed, but I'd love to hear some of the things that you guys have learned as you've persisted through and how you've grown. I mean, I know we talk a lot. Oh, there is one other thing I wanted to mention. One of the things that he said, and I really, really like this, is that we forget sometimes to give ourselves credit for sticking in the game. We're doing this. I mean, the fact that you're on this training means that you have the drive and you have the desire to stick in here and to learn and to grow and to gain the skill that you need. But if you're forgetting to give yourself credit for that skill that you are developing, you're missing out on an opportunity to build your confidence. As you recognize that, hey, I didn't give up when that person canceled, or I didn't get upset when they switched coaches, or you're becoming more emotionally intelligent. When you recognize that, you have a bank to draw on for the next challenge that comes ahead. Because guaranteed, in the 3 years that I've coached, when I feel like I've mastered something else comes up. Coaching is a fantastic way to learn how flawed you are. But it's a fantastic way to become better every single day. So if you can give yourself that credit, like, okay, I hung in there when this was difficult and it was a challenge for me. And now I have that skill to draw on, and I have the ability to handle the next thing that comes. So, I mean, please come off mute and share what some of your experiences have been.
Hi, I'm Michelle Thompson. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hey, Michelle.
I've had quite the last 2 weeks. I started coaching in August, and I got my first 3 clients, and it has just been a whirlwind. I already had 1 client drop off her plan by day 6. She opted. She wasn't going to keep doing her fuelings, and she wasn't listening to me. And my mentor was she's amazing. If you guys know Heather Humphrey, that woman has godlike patience. I started listening to that Ed Milet guy, and he's brilliant speaker. And every time I just feel down, like I'm not doing something right, I dive into reading the Habits of Health or the Life book. I did not do the Optavia program, the fueling part to lose weight. I did it the long way around for 2 years on my own before I was introduced to Optavia. And so Heather was like, girlfriend, jump on here. Like, you know how to do this. You can help people. And so that's why I've done it. And I'm just every day trying to give myself that pep talk that I can't give up, because I'm not a quitter. And I know it will get easier, but the last 2 weeks has been really hard. So I appreciate the call today.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I definitely can relate to that. And I think we all have our moments, and that's where it's so great to have mentorship. They've been there, they've walked this path. Yeah. They can offer so many great suggestions. And so, yeah, when I have a rough day, I know Chantel hears from me all the time. I'm like, what is happening here? But she's able to kind of redirect me and help me see, okay, this is just part of the process, and it's okay. Anybody else?
I was able to pull up the slide on my computer so I can see what we were supposed to talk about.
Oh, good.
All the bullet points. So in resiliency, there's like a picture of the kid blindfolded and he's hitting the piñata, and you can see all these people in the background. And one kid is like kind of hiding, and another kid is like cheering them on, and another kid's pointing, And so like being resilient, Ed Milet talks about, is a skill that we learn. Some people are natural gifted speakers. That's only going to get you so far. You have to learn how to just keep continuing, like Michelle said. It's hard sometimes, but you don't give up. You just keep going and you put in the work. So the key points we had to help you with resiliency is, who can you reach out to? We talked about reaching out to our mentors so that they can guide us, they can help us through, they can have the patience that sometimes we lack when we're helping our clients, because we're like, I've told you this 10 times. But sometimes them just hearing it from someone else, it clicks, right? What voices are you listening to? Are you listening to that inner voice that's like, oh yeah, I'm not good at this. I've had one person quit, I'm done. Or are you listening to the voice in the sideline saying, you've got this, you're good, you got it, you're right there, just keep swinging. So it's really, what voice do we want to make prominent in our own lives? What are you working on personally? Michelle mentioned She struggles, she has a hard time, she jumps in, she starts reading her Habits of Health. We start listening to podcasts like Ed Milet. And if you don't get pumped up listening to someone like him, then we'll find you someone else to listen to. But he's pretty powerful and amazing. And then, have you actually decided to build this skill? He says in there, he was just like, you will have to kill me before I stop chasing my dreams. I do not give up. And so that is the number one thing, is you have to decide this skill is going to be important over everything. Whether we are just touching our business 1 second, 1 hour, 1 day, one conversation at a time, or if we dive all in and we spend 2 or 3 hours a day really building our business, they're both going to equate to the same thing. You are going to succeed at one level or another, but you're just not giving up. And that's the biggest thing. So teamwork, like when that piñata busts open, it is not fun to collect candy by yourself. Like, ain't nobody want to be the only person standing under the piñata when it all busts open. So teamwork is like the biggest way to help us when we start feeling burnt out, when we start feeling distracted, when we start feeling like, oh, I'm not so great at this. Teamwork is going to be the biggest thing that will get you through and help you not quit.
So good, Tara. I want to add one thing is I think it's important that along with this skill of resiliency, that one of the key focuses needs to be on how am I developing my thinking, right? Because the quality of our lives is determined by the quality of our emotions. And the quality of our emotions is determined by the quality of our thoughts. And in large part, the quality of our thoughts is determined by the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. Like, what do I want? Why do I want that? What am I, who do I know the path, and who's going to help me on that path? Am I reaching out to those people? We talk a lot about the 2-part brain, actually a 3-part brain. The brain stem, it's like all the autonomic stuff, right? It beats your heart. It sends those sensory messages that, hey, heartbeat, blink, all these things. For 2 seconds here, I want you to try to stop your heart from beating. Okay, if any of you could do it, you're no longer with us, right? You cannot stop your heart from beating by thinking about it. You can't stop your brain from thinking. That's an autonomic response. And so just higher than the brainstem is the limbic system. In that limbic system, it's Dr. A refers to it as the Labrador brain. A lot of people talk about the animal brain. I've heard it referred to as the toddler brain, right? So there's the toddler brain or the animal brain. It says, avoid pain, seek pleasure. That's its job for survival. But it also does something else that is developed in our toddler years. Toddlers will, they blame, like they break something, right? And you're like, what'd you do? And you're like, oh, the dog pushed me and I bumped into the vase or something like that. They learn that. That is not an instinct. They blame, they deny, and they avoid. But that is because their parents have taught them. Kim Fisk talks about it this way. Like a little baby, and even early into their toddler years, they do not think that pooping their pants is a bad thing until their parents are like, ooh, gross, stinky. And then they develop this response that, oh, there's something bad about pooping my pants. So then they start to go and hide. They avoid their parents because they think that that's a bad thing. They just haven't learned the skill of being potty trained yet. So one of the things that Helen Irwin talks to us about all the time, and she went over this last week in my personal coaching session with her. I don't know if you can see that. But what happened, and then what meaning have I given to that? And the shaded area in between, that is our interpretation. So don't you know people who have had the same things happen to them in their life that we have in our life, and they interpret it totally differently? They respond totally differently because they chose to give it different meaning. I can tell you from personal experience that brain surgery is more difficult than bankruptcy. Brain surgery happened to Amber 6 years into this business for us. Had we not learned all that we learned in our first 6 years in this business, that brain surgery probably would have defeated us. But it strengthened us. It built us up instead of tore us down, because we had learned to give things new meaning. And so I would designate a few minutes a day, morning and night probably, not during your prime time hours when you're talking to other people, but designate some time where you're going to think about your thoughts and improve your thoughts, because those thoughts are going to improve your emotions, and your emotions are going to improve your life.
So true, Jared. I love that. And I love something that Ed Milet says all of the time, and it's that life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And to move forward and to handle the next challenge. I think we're just about out of time, but I just wanted to show this little clip that kind of goes along with it, and hopefully it will work. Can everyone see my screen? Yay!
We can't hear it though.
I thought that was a fun, it'll stop. Just kind of a fun way to tie things up. When we're feeling frustrated, we feel like we're never going to reach our goal. Like Marlon thought he was never going to find Nemo. In comes Dory, the mentor, and drags him along until he comes around and is able to really reach the goal and get where he needed. So definitely reach out to your mentorship when you're having a struggle, when things are getting hard. Go to those who've been there before, ask for help, ask for guidance. They'll help you take that blindfold off so that you can just whack away at that piñata, and eventually the candy's going to burst out of there and you're going to have that sweet reward. But here's just a couple quotes if you want to take a screenshot. Just some things that I really, really liked. But it really is just one step at a time, one day at a time, one conversation at a time, and you will reach those goals as long as you don't give up. So thanks so much for everyone's participation. Tara, thank you for your help. Jared, you as well.